Welcome in, everybody, to the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Billy Muzio, and tonight we're going to be running through the injury reports heading into the Week 14 matchups. A very important week because most of you are either trying to get into playoffs or you need the win to secure a Week 1 bye week. And this, most important part about fantasy is getting in the playoffs. So let's go ahead and kick it off the top. Let's talk about players who are in that were on the injury report this week. Let's start off with J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins was ruled in. They activated him to the active roster this week, so that's good news for the Baltimore Ravens. I expect them to be a little bit more run heavy this week with no Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley, we discussed on the podcast earlier in the week with Jody and I, and the stats are kind of a mixed bag, inconsistent results for Tyler Huntley. That being said, the run game should be a prime focus here for the Baltimore Ravens with Dobbins activated. I do expect this to be a three-headed monster, though, between Drake, Dobbins, and Gus Edwards. So if you are a fantasy manager and you were expecting some more usage out of Gus Edwards, I would say temper expectations because we would expect a three-headed monster. Joe Mixon is in this week, which is good news for fantasy managers who drafted him early in drafts. We do expect P. Ryan to be involved, though. He performed admirably in the absence of Joe Mixon. I don't think he's just going to go away. I do expect a little bit more of a timeshare than what we saw prior to the concussion. That being said, concussions don't usually keep people out once they are activated. It doesn't limit their snaps, I should say. So Mixon, expect a full workload, but I would expect to see P. Ryan mixed in a little bit more than we're comfortable admitting here for this game. Jerick McKinnon was in against Denver, so this is a good piece for Kansas City to have as well. Isaiah Pacheco, shoulder and quad, also in as well, so they got both their running backs here this week. Travis Homer seems to be the starting running back this week for Seattle. He did have a knee injury, but he is ruled in. The ruling tonight was that we were not going to be seeing DJ Dallas, and we were not going to be seeing Walker, which was fairly expected here this week, coming off the injury last week, and then with them activating Igwebuike to the active roster tonight. So that leaves us in Seattle with Homer, Tony Jones, and Igwebuike. So Travis Homer is now, I think, my RB30 in my ranks that are on the site, Full-Time Fantasy. I do expect him to lead this backfield and to see the majority of the snaps here for Seattle. T. Higgins, his hamstring, he is ruled in as well. Jerry Jeudy, his leg is in, which is great news for Denver because they are without Cortland Sutton. So between Jeudy and Hinton and Dulcich, those are the primary weapons that Russell Wilson has this week. Zay Jones, his chest was ruled in. Keenan Allen, hamstring, was also ruled in. Mike Williams is back this week, which is a great news for the Chargers. So we actually have Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Palmer on the field this week. So great news for Herbert managers because he does have his full arsenal of weapons. Jalen Waddle, his fibula is in this week. Quez Watkins, his shoulder is in this week. Deontay Johnson, his hip is in this week, which is good news as well. Marquise Goodwin in as well. Deebo Samuel in, and that's a quad and a hamstring. I expect Deebo to be a little bit more involved this week than he was last week. I do expect it to be the Christian McCaffrey show with Brock Purdy at helm now. And I joke around the podcast saying Purdy looked pretty good this week, or last week, I should say, but I do expect them to get Deebo Samuel a little bit more involved. We'll probably see some more screen game action. We'll probably see a few more carries this week since he had no setbacks of that hamstring or quad. I don't think you'll see the amount of carries that we saw last year from Deebo Samuel. That's not in the realm of possibilities, but do expect maybe an extra carry or two this week, seeing that they still, are only with Christian McCaffrey. They did activate Tevin Coleman to the active roster as well, so at least it gives them another back to kind of hammer between the tackles and alleviate some of that workload from Christian McCaffrey, but I do expect Christian McCaffrey to see about 80+% of snaps and to be the primary focus of this offense. Only tight end that was ruled in, that was on the injury report, was David Njoku, which is great news for Cleveland. That was his ankle injury, so we expect to see him back to his full amount of snaps. Moving along to outs. Start at the tight end position since we're on the tight end position. Hayden Hurst was ruled out for Cincinnati with a calf strain, so not good news there. I know I'm in a position where now I don't have a tight end in some of these leagues because I had Hayden Hurst, Goddard, and Kmet. So unfortunately, no tight end for me in one of my high stakes leagues with no money left in Fab. So Three tight ends in the roster and no one to play. Just in an unfortunate situation. Hopefully you're in a better spot than I am in that league. Wide receivers ruled out. Traylon Burks with a concussion. We expect him back next week. This is usually a 7 to 10 day absence. It was a pretty big hit. He didn't drop the ball, which was phenomenal. It was actually quite amazing that he didn't drop that ball. But we do expect him back next week, so just expect a 1 week absence. Same with Jacoby Myers, concussion. We'll probably expect him back next week as well. I think you get a slight uptick. If you're in like desperation mode, you get a slight uptick for Bourne this week, and maybe Thornton if you want to like a really deep dive there as well. Kadarius Toney, his hamstring is ruled out. I think we're all just done with Toney at this point, and you probably have better options. Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks both out. Nico Collins with a foot and a groin injury. Brandon Cooks with a calf injury. That leaves the Houston Texans with a pretty mediocre receiving core. So I don't think you want to be using those receivers unless you're completely desperate. The running game now against Dallas, they're probably going to stack the box. Tight ends are also used infrequently. I think this is, if you have a Dallas defense, this is a phenomenal place for Dallas defense to be playing against Houston Texans without their top 2 wide receiver options, and they're going to be able to stack this box. So unfortunately, both those receivers out. KJ Hamler still out with the hamstring injury. I mentioned earlier, Cortland Sutton was out with the hamstring injury. Rondell Moore is actually ruled out again with a groin injury. They did get Greg Dortch in, so that is at least a promising note for Arizona. At least they can have someone else there across the middle of the field. Damian Harris was ruled out, so if you are a Ramondre Stevenson owner, that's fantastic news because Ramondre Stevenson now is back into the top 5 as long as Damian Harris is ruled out. And I said earlier, Lamar Jackson ruled out as well. So that's it for the outs as of now. Now the ones that are maddening. It's the true game time decisions, the GTDs. Saquon Barkley they're saying a legitimate 50-50 game time decision. I don't know. No one else knows. So if they say they know, it's BS. He's a true game time decision. I don't think you're going to want to start Breida. I think it's a trap. He's not going to see the volume that Saquon Barkley would see. You probably have a better option in your roster. You probably want to go that route, and I would look to that as well. Kenneth Walker was a game time decision, but is expected not to play, so that's updated now. Same thing with DJ Dallas. Leonard Fournette is a true game time decision as well, and I think for all those Rachaad White owners, you're rejoicing. For Fournette owners, even if he is active, you would not expect a full workload because now it's a foot issue. He came off a hip issue, so this is a new injury. I would not be comfortable starting Fournette this week, especially against the San Francisco 49ers, who are very tough against the run. Amari Cooper popped up this week on the Thursday injury report with a hip issue, and it's never a good thing to see a late addition to the injury report. Typically, it means they're going to sit. So if I had to guess right now, I'd say that Amari Cooper is probably leaning closer towards sitting than playing. I would look for other options. If you have Donovan Peoples-Jones, is great. David Njoku is going to see an increased workload. Kareem Hunt will see an increased workload as well. So all of these are options that you can consider on the Browns if you're looking for outs. DK Metcalf is a true game time decision as well with a hip and knee issue. We are expecting him to play, though. I saw a report earlier that said 60% that he was not going to play. I'd probably say 60% he is playing and 40% not playing. I know that Pete Carroll is, the voice of optimism, and he's never really that truthful, but he was pretty optimistic again that Metcalf would play, and we know Metcalf is one tough SOB, and he's going to want to be on the field if he is able to. That was the quick rundown tonight. I wanted to save most of the time for start sits because this is when we get hammered the most of them on Saturday night. So I already see there's about 20 comments in there where start sits. So I'll start hammering through those, and we'll just go through it one at a time. So feel free to send multiple in there. If you have a lot of start-sit questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Let me post the rankings as well. I did a preliminary update tonight. I'm going to update again in the morning once we have the full amount of information for the actives and inactives for tomorrow. So let me get this link for those who are unfamiliar. And this also has mine and Jody's rankings on here. So I just posted it inside of YouTube for you. I'm going to show it so everyone can see it. Right down there, that is the full-time fantasy rankings. That's myself and Jody. You can see them comparison. If you scroll down, Jody's is below mine. Mine's right there. And you can actually see not only where I have the player ranked, and you can organize it by quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. You can go flex or super flex. It also gives you ECR, which is expert consensus rankings, and it lets you know if we're higher or lower on them compared to the expert consensus rankings. Just off the top of my head, like I know I'm higher on Homer than a lot of people are. Gus Edwards still needs to be adjusted with the news tonight, so he'll move down probably to 35-ish, 34-ish. That'll be closer to ECR. So there's a few players in here that are still have to be updated with news, and I'll do that after the podcast, but it gives you kind of a good starting point tonight as well if you want to look at that while I'm talking. Okay, first question of the night. Let's take a look here at... I think it's just how you live. Daniel Jones or Jared Goff. Oh, man. Okay. Let me pull up those rankings as I just closed them. So that way I can give you where I have them ranked right now currently and the reasoning behind them. So quarterbacks, let's see. Options were Daniel Jones or Jared Goff. So Daniel Jones is facing, of course, going against Philly. Jared Goff gets Minnesota. I'm going to go with Jared Goff here. Love the matchup with Minnesota. I think we could see a potential shootout. Detroit, gives up the most points in the league, scores, I should say, not fantasy points, but actual scores in the NFL. So I do expect a high-scoring match this week. I'm going to go with Jared Goff, versus Minnesota. Next one I have is pick one PPR, Homer, White, Pacheco. We want to get the information on Fournette. So as of tonight, I lean Pacheco. So Pacheco in my rankings right now is running back 19. White, for instance, let me see where White's at. White is running back 24. Again, it's a tough matchup versus SF. So even if Fournette is ruled out, the matchup is tough. I do like Homer's matchup, but I just don't know the usage that we're going to see from him. I would probably put him in that 29 range is where Homer should be probably. And then... So I probably Pacheco first, White second, and then Homer third. I think it stays that way even if Fournette is ruled out. My rankings kind of reflect Fournette being ruled out right now. So I'm leaning that way. So I think I'm going to stay that way even if he is officially ruled out tomorrow. So let's go ahead and go with Pacheco here versus Denver. Gesicki or Kittle. I know Kittle's been disappointing, but I'm never going to start Gesicki over Kittle. I'll just leave it at that. I still have Kittle in my top 8. Gesicki, for instance, is like 19. So pretty major difference for me in the tight end rankings. Keep 2 rest of season playoffs: Palmer, Burke, McKenzie, or Corey Davis. I think you have them listed as such. Palmer and Burke I would keep. If I had to only pick 2. McKenzie's just inconsistent. At best ball, he's great, but hitting the start button on a week-to-week basis is tougher. Corey Davis has just kind of been hot and cold with injuries, and so Palmer, has the option of being the 1 or 2 in this offense if either one of these guys get hurt again, and Burke is the clear number 1 when he is healthy and on the field. So I expect Burke back next week. Palmer still has had a big game when all 3 of them were on the field and is in the better offense than Corey Davis, and McKenzie is the third option. So Palmer and Burke pretty easily for me. Next one from Colt is Thielen, Chark, Pacheco, Palmer, Devonta Smith. Sorry, it's a lot, but stakes best 3 in full PPR. So I think I have to pick 3 of them is what you're saying. Pacheco is in for me for sure. Devonta Smith is in for me for sure. And then I lean. Let me check my wide receiver rankings to see. I know I have Thielen ahead of Chark this week. I just want to see where I have Palmer versus Thielen. So Thielen, I have... Thielen's at 31. And I think Palmer's at like 35. There he is. Yep, 35. So I lean Thielen. Again, that's the Detroit matchup. I like that matchup this week. So I might even have, when everything's said and done, Thielen will probably be at like 29, 28 tomorrow, depending upon some news. I'm still waiting on some news that might affect, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who might reach the top 30, and so there's some wiggle room here. But Thielen probably top 30 receiver this week, especially against Detroit. Let's move on. Need to start 2: Dobbins, Homer, Pacheco, James Cook, Rashad White. I don't think we can trust Dobbins at this point with the other options that you have, so he's the easy man out. It breaks down to Rashad White, Pacheco, or Homer, which is the same scenario. Also, James Cook is just another one hard to trust. Usage last week was exceptional, but it's not the norm for him. If we knew he was going to get that type of usage, I would say go ahead and start James Cook. He's in the best offense in the league, or one of the best offenses in the league, but we just don't know that that's the usage he's going to see. So I'd say you're sitting Dobbins and Cook pretty easily here. You're starting Pacheco pretty easily here. The other one is probably Rashad White. So I lean Pacheco and White if you want to throw in Homer because you think he's going to get more volume and the easier matchup. I'm fine with it, but I lean Pacheco and White over Homer. That's the answer there. If Barkley is inactive, would you start Breida over Chark? No, I'd play Chark. Again, easier matchup. We just got. I don't trust Breida because I don't think it's going to be. It's not just going to be Breida, or they're going to get the other back involved as well. So I would not be playing Breida. I think it's a trap. I'd go with Chark. Next one we have is Pierce, Najee, or ETN. ETN for me pretty easily. In my rankings, just to give you kind of a comparison, I have ETN as, where is he? Running back 13. I know Tennessee's tough, but he also catches the ball. Najee I have right now at 18, and then I have Pierce at 17. So all kind of in that same tier per se, but I think ETN, from a volume standpoint, we saw him with 80+% of snaps last week. He also gets heavily involved in the passing game, or should be involved in the passing game. We saw 3 targets last week, so I like the usage. I like the snaps. I'm gonna go that way, and gonna say ETN. Next question is from Branderson. If Amari is out, Pickens or Gabe Davis, half-point PPR. I still start Gabe Davis, and I know that Gabe Davis is hard to start sometimes. He's been on a cold streak. I do feel like that New York is going to be looking to limit Diggs this week, which in turn should open up the field a little bit more for Gabe Davis. I know that Pickens has a nice matchup, but I'm just going to go for the better quarterback and the better offense. Gabe Davis in my rankings right now is 30. Pickens in my rankings is 36, so it's close. They're both in that 30 to 36 range. I just lean slightly towards Gabe Davis. Best of luck. Like the stream, that's right, Giselle. Thank you very much, everybody. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you have not, please. It definitely helps the algorithm and definitely helps the podcast. So I appreciate you all being here tonight. Made the playoffs. Thanks. PPR, Flex, Palmer, Jeff Wilson, or Rashad White. Okay, so I know everyone is out this week on Jeff Wilson, and I think that's a mistake. So Jeff Wilson gets a really easy matchup this week. He's heading up against the Chargers, and I know he was not in the game script last week against the Niners, but the Niners are very, very, very tough against the run. McDaniels knows this. So I don't think that they were planning to utilize their running backs as much last week as people were maybe anticipating or hoping. Sometimes it just doesn't fit the plan for the NFL, and we have to be okay with that for fantasy perspective, and we kind of have to have the foresight in order to anticipate these coaches making those type of moves. That being said, that's not the scenario this week. They're not going to sit here. So we know that Waddle is a little banged up. He's in, don't get me wrong, but still a little banged up. Still going to see his probably close to normal amount of reps and snaps. But the Chargers are giving up the most yards per carry in the NFL, 5.6. And we expect them to run the ball. We expect them to get ahead this game possibly. And it's going to be, they're definitely going to lean on the run a little bit more. So I think Jeff Wilson for me is the clear start this week. Others may argue Rashad White, Fournette's out, but they're facing the Niners. They're very tough, I just said, against the run. I lean Jeff Wilson. I'm a lot higher on Jeff Wilson and ECR, I think. Let's see where ECR is, where I'm at. So Wilson, I'm +5. So ECR right now is 21. I'm at 16. +5 in the top 20 is pretty big. I do think that he's going to be a RB2 this week, kind of middle RB2. I think he has upside as an RB1 with the touchdown upside. So I like Jeff Wilson a lot this week. I might be kind of on an island here from an analyst standpoint, but I think they're going to utilize the run. It wasn't in the game plan last week. I think it's in the game plan this week. Hello, everyone. Would you start Homer over P. Ryan? and White. And also in another league, will you start Homer over Pacheco, White, or James Cook? A lot of Pacheco, a lot of Homer questions tonight. So Pacheco over Homer still easily. And then the question was Homer over Pirine. Yes, I would play Homer over Pirine and White. So again, I mentioned this earlier. I think if Fournette's out, I go White even in a tougher matchup because it's going to be, he's going to be the guy. He's going to see the volume not only on the ground but also in the air. So I would go White over Homer if Fournette is out. If Fournette is in, I lean Homer. So hope that helps you, Miguel. It's going to be a kind of a wait and see for tomorrow. Pick one, Pirine, Homer, or Mostert. I'm going to go with Homer here. I do expect him to see probably anywhere from 3 to 4 targets, if not maybe 5, depending on DK Metcalf news. But I definitely think 3 is in the realm of possibilities, and I would probably expect to see him like 12 or 13 carries. So probably expect him that 15 to 16 touch range, which I think would get him on the field about 60% of snaps, roughly, is my anticipation. So I'm going to go with Homer here over Pirine and Mostert. I don't think Pirine's going to have a large role with Mixon back. I do think his role is going to be larger than it was when Mixon was in prior, but I don't think that it's going to be anything what we had been seeing the last couple of weeks. So Pirine now relegated back to like RB40 range. Mostert is possibly lower. Let me see where I have him. Yeah, that's wrong. If he says 25 right now, he's probably going to be around 30 range. So still, I would definitely be leaning with Homer here in this situation. Should I start Jameson Williams? I don't think you can yet. As much Jameson Williams was one of my favorite prospects out of this draft class. I love the talent. I just don't think he's fully healthy. He's not ready to be utilized in a full snap capacity. I don't think you can fully trust him. Even if in a desperation mode, I'm probably looking elsewhere. So I love the talent, love the kid. Think he's going to have a great NFL career. I just don't think it's going to be anytime in the next week or two. Should I start Bam Knight over Rachaad White? Ooh, this is a good one, actually. I have them right now back-to-back, 23 and 24. If Fournette is ruled out, I think Rachaad White gets the nod ahead of Bam for me. If Fournette is in, I would start Bam over White. So, again, wait-and-see mode. You have Edwards 28 and Homer 30. Would you play? Let me see if that's right. Try updating it. I think I updated it right before the podcast. Go ahead and hit refresh for me on the rankings. I'm doing it right now as well because I think I submitted it like right as I was talking about it. Let's see here. Yeah. So it's Homer's 29, Gus Edwards 32. So, would you play Homer as he's not sharing? Yeah. So I'd play Homer over Edwards. Hit refresh on the rankings. You'll see it updated. I did it right as I told you guys to pull it up. Probably dropping Jacoby Myers, PPR, pick up Lazard, or grab Mike White since trade 15. QB is Dak versus Jack next week. Oh, man. I probably wouldn't drop Jacoby Myers because when he's back, he's going to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. I know that's not much. It's New England, but you have Dak. You don't need Mike White, although I think Mike White's been great, but he also has had 2 fairly easy matchups. This week we get a true kind of test with Mike White against Buffalo and that stout defense, but I would not be dropping Jacoby Myers for another quarterback when you own Dak. I mean, if you're in a super flex, sure, but I doubt it's a super flex, so I'd probably just keep Jacoby Myers over Lazard. It's clear that Watson is the preferred target now in that offense, and so and of course the running back. So I would probably just keep Jacoby Myers, quite frankly. He should be back next week. Jerry Jeudy or Swift in my flex. I think you have to go Swift now. I know some people don't trust him still, but it was the first time he saw over 50% of snaps again. He actually beat Jamal Williams last week in snaps. He saw red zone touches as well. I think we finally have Swift healthy. I think we're going to see his similar workload as we saw last week. I don't think he's going to be back to that. And he was in that like dry spell, like 30% snap range. He was getting out snapped by Justin Jackson a couple weeks. I don't think we're going back to that. So I think we're fully healthy. I think Swift is in the mix. I would start Swift here. I do like the shootout potential, or I should say the amount of targets and the potential amount of times they're going to have to throw versus Kansas City. So I see the allure here, and I like Jerry Jeudy, but I think Swift is just I love Swift, and I'm so disappointed in the season that he's had and his kind of irregular usage and his injuries that he had. But when he's healthy and when he's on the field and when he sees full snaps, he, in my opinion, has the ability to be a top 5 running back. He's not in my top 5 rankings. I mean, I think he's inside my top 11 this week at running back. I have him at number 10. Yep. Minnesota gives up a lot to in the air versus running backs, and we know that that's where Swift makes his money. So I'm going to go Swift here. I like the matchup for him. I think he's going to see close to 50% snaps again, and I think that he has the ability to score from anywhere on the field. So where Jerry Jeudy has to get the ball from Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's been trash. So I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift. Goff or Watson? I'm going to go Goff here. I mentioned earlier, I love the matchup. Watson maybe without Amari Cooper tomorrow. We'll find out on that more in the morning. And Watson just didn't look good last week. I know Houston's fairly tough, but he didn't play football for 700 days roughly. Now we're in week 2. He should have a little bit more of that rust knocked off, but I don't fully trust Watson yet. And Goff has looked pretty good, especially in these easier matchups. And I expect this game to be pretty high scoring, quite frankly. So I'm going to go Goff. James, half PPR flex, Hubbard, Fournette, Devontae Parker, Josh Reynolds, need 1. Oh, man, that's ugly. That's really ugly. Oh, man, I don't really like any of these options. Who's on your waiver wire? I would say if I had to pick out of these guys, if Fournette's active, you probably just play him just because he has the best maybe upside for a potential touchdown and maybe a couple catches, but I don't like any of these options, quite frankly. It'd be Fournette if he's active, but if he's not active, I would probably look to the waiver wire. I think you could find better options on the waiver wire. I mean, you could gamble with Devontae Parker with no Jacoby Myers, but I don't like it, quite frankly. Go ahead and look at the waiver wire and add another question at the end, then I'll get to it. Mike Williams or Jerry Jeudy this week, and start 2, Dulcich, Njoku, or Ingram. Jerry Jeudy over Mike Williams this week for me. Again, he's the number 1 receiver. He's going to play probably 90+% of snaps, so I like that where Mike Williams might be eased in a little bit. Dulcich is the clear start here at tight end for me. He's my tight end 3 this week. I'm very high on Dulcich this week. Take that with a grain of salt because my tight end rankings have been very inconsistent this year. I hit some, miss some. And I take Njoku over Ingram. I go for the talent. And especially if they don't have Amari Cooper, we expect to see a lot more David Njoku this week. So Dulcich to Njoku. So as you have those listed, and then Jerry Jeudy over Mike Williams. Do you start Singletary or Terrace Marshall, assuming Walker is out? Yeah, Walker is going to be out. Singletary for me. Terrace Marshall, I just can't trust right now. So Singletary, at least we know, is going to get snaps. So I go Singletary over Terrace Marshall. Jets are tough, but Singletary will still be involved. High ceiling for PPR as a flex, Keenan Allen, Hopkins, or potentially Connor. Keenan Allen, Hopkins, or potentially Connor. Do I only get to pick one? Oh, man, that's tough. I can only pick one? What is this, like an 8-man league? Hopkins is my wide receiver 10. Keenan Allen's my wide receiver 13. Connor is my running back 14 or 15? 15. If I can only pick one, it's Hopkins. I mean, he's the red zone target. He's an animal. He's a beast. They're still down weapons as well. So Hopkins for me, if I can only choose one. Who are you starting over these guys? That's what I'm curious about. Please post it down in below, and I'll get back to it. Let me know who you're starting over them, because you may have someone in there that I would probably start Allen over, or even Connor. Pick 2, Marquise Brown, White, or Jeudy. Marquise Brown and Jeudy for me this week. Full-time wide receivers over the part-time running back. And I think that stays even if Fournette is active or inactive. I still pick Marquise Brown and Jeudy. Knight, Pacheco, or Damon Pierce, start 1. Oh, tough one. Man. Damon Pierce has a brutal matchup this week, and they have no receivers. They're probably going to load the box. Normally, I'd probably say Pierce, but I think I'm going to lean Pacheco here. My rankings have Pierce at 17, Pacheco at 19. I think Pierce will continue to be moved down tomorrow morning, so we'll probably see Damon Pierce closer to 19 in the morning. Pierce sorry, Pierce probably closer to 19, Pacheco probably closer to 17. So these two probably swap tomorrow morning. So I'm going to lean with Isaiah Pacheco over Damon Pierce. This one says I had no start at the beginning because of buys and injuries. Now I have several questions because of buys and injuries. Things happen fast. That's right. The NFL, and we have 6 teams on buys in Week 14 heading into playoffs. It's never a good thing. How confident are you Darren Waller will be the number 2 option when back next week? Will he be better than Njoku or flip a coin? Yeah, I always say flip a coin on these kind of things. Waller, something tells me it's something more than what they're leading on to be with Waller. I don't know what to fully think. When Waller is healthy and when he's on the field, he's a top 3 tight end on a week-to-week basis. That being said, Derek Carr has just looked horrible, and they want to run the ball 30 times a game. I'd probably say we're going to want to play this on matchups, but you look at I almost said Oakland. You look at Las Vegas' schedule. They get the Patriots, then the Steelers. Patriots, Steelers, and 49ers. The 49ers will be a tough matchup for them. The Steelers are fairly tough. Patriots are exploitable at the tight end position, where you have Njoku, Ravens, Saints, and Washington. So both their schedules are pretty tough. I'd probably want to see 1 week from Waller and see the type of usage. So I'd probably, first week back, I'm probably playing Njoku and then kind of wait and see what happens with Waller. Is he going to play full snaps? Are they going to involve him? Are they going to run the ball 30 times? So I'd probably lean Njoku as of today, especially as Washington starts heating up. And if Amari misses time, I don't expect him to miss more than 1 week. But if he did for whatever reason, I think that would just lean more towards Njoku as well. So let's go ahead and say Njoku as of tonight, but let's wait and see how they look next week if he's active. Thoughts on DPJ's outlook tomorrow, rest of the fantasy playoffs? I really like DPJ this week. So I have him inside my top 30. If Amari's out, I think he could probably slide him into like 21, 22 range, honestly. And I think that he's got, like I said, a decent playoff schedule. The Ravens is great for receivers. The Saints are good for receivers. Washington's a little tougher, but I think DPJ's been sneaky good, and I think that they're only going to get better with Watson as he gets more time under his belt and he gets kind of the rust knocked off and back into a rhythm. So I think DPJ's outlook looks good for playoffs. Zonovan, James Cook, or Hunt. For me, it's between Hunt or Zonovan, but I lean Zonovan. So I'm going to go that route. If Amari's ruled out, I wouldn't argue with you if you want to throw Hunt in. How you feel on Chig this week? No Burks could help some. Yeah, it just depends what the coaches are going to do. I mean, you would think they'd run more 12 personnel with no Burks, but they also have Derrick Henry, and they could run the ball 30-plus times. So I think that Chig probably sees a little bit more usage. I'd say probably that 35 to 40-yard mark is probably the correct area. You're going to be touchdown dependent, though. And when they get in the red zone, you know what they do. They hand the ball off Derrick Henry. So I wouldn't trust it. It's more of a gamble than a must-play. If you have another option ahead of them that you can play, I'd probably look that way. But if you're in desperation mode, like some of us are at tight end, and with the inconsistencies at the tight end position, I wouldn't knock you for going that way, because the kid has talent, and if they were to utilize him properly, then he could potentially be a tight end 2 on a week-to-week basis. But I just don't trust Tennessee or trust the fact that they're going to throw the ball that much, and they probably just lean on the run. So I'd say, sure, go ahead, but have caution. I think Mark Andrews targets up next few weeks with Lamar out. I do. So I talked about this on the podcast yesterday when I had Jim Coventry on. So if you go to the Full-Time Fantasy channel and you go to yesterday's show with Jim Coventry, there's a whole segment on this. So I'm not going to go over it right now, but Jim Coventry and I both talked about the amount of targets that Andrew saw, and we also, actually, I think it was Thursday's podcast with Jody. We talked about it. But Andrews was a top 5 tight end every single week when he was in with Huntley. Huntley just kind of hyper-focused him. So just like any inexperienced quarterback does, they kind of hyper-focus their wide receiver one. Well, they don't have a wide receiver one, so that target is Andrews, and they're going to hyper-focus him. So I think Andrews is a smash play as long as Huntley's in. And he's just a top-tier tight end no matter what, but especially with Huntley in. Same question earlier. I went with Lawrence Oh no, it was Goff earlier. I still go with Lawrence over Watson. I just don't fully trust Watson yet, so I want to see more, and especially if Amari's out. We don't know that yet, but we'll know it in the morning, and so I want to see more of Watson before I start throwing him in my lineups. This is a playoff dynasty roster, starting Eckler, Jacobs as the running backs, Diggs, Godwin, and then options for the flexes are Allen, Hopkins. Okay, this was the earlier question. Yeah, you're playing all those guys. Honestly, I'd probably play Allen. I'd probably sit Godwin, and I'd play Hopkins and Allen. Those were the options, if I remember right. So I would probably sit Godwin and play Hopkins and Allen over him, because I think you had me pick one between Allen, Hopkins, and Connor earlier. So I'd probably sit Godwin of this group and start with Allen and Hopkins, quite frankly. Need 2 PPR, Mike Williams, Chark, and Homer. I'll play Mike Williams and Homer this week. Again, Mike Williams coming off injury, but is good for probably, I'm going to say 70% of snaps, roughly. Probably not going to see a full snap share, but they'll definitely be in red zone packages as well. The big-bodied Mike, we know that he's good for a touchdown anytime he's playing as well. Homer is going to see the field quite a bit. I mentioned earlier I probably expect that close to 60% of snaps. I like Chark, I like the matchup, but I just like these two a little bit more. Dulcich or Schultz. Ooh, it's a good one. Most people have Schultz ahead of Dulcich, but I do not this week. I have Dulcich ahead of Schultz, so I'm going to say Dulcich. Again, there gets Kansas City. He's going to probably be the number 2 option in this offense, maybe the number 1 option, maybe Judy's number 2. I don't know. I think it's probably going to be Judy and then Dulcich. But there's no Cortland Sutton, so we expect Dulcich to be used out wide more. Reports from beat writers this week were that Dulcich was going to be used as out wide a little bit more, so that's great news for fantasy purposes. So I'd lean Dulcich here. Houston, in general, this matchup, I think they're going to favor the ground game. Houston is the worst in the league against the run, so I fully expect Dallas Cowboys to lean on Pollard and to lean on Zeke. Don't get me wrong, they're still going to pass the ball, but it's not going to be a focal point. I think they're going to be able to lean early and often on the running backs and just kind of hammer this ground game and just pretty much abuse Houston. I don't think this is going to be a close match at all. So they're going to be able to just kill the clock, get ahead. And versus the tight end position, if I recall, Houston is fairly tough. So yeah, they're the 11th best versus the tight end, so a little bit tougher. So I lean Dulcich here. Oh, here it is. So Damon Pierce or Mike Williams. There's the correction. Man, Pierce is going to see full snaps. Mike Williams probably sees, like I said, around 70%. He was off the injury report, though. Pierce has a really tough matchup. Oh, man, I don't like it. That's a tough one. I probably lean Mike Williams here. I just don't like the Dameon Pierce matchup this week. Dallas is tough. They're a tough defense to begin with. They're top 6 versus the running back position for fantasy purposes. They've only given up 5 touchdowns all year to the position. That's through the air and on the ground. They're going to be able to load the box. They don't have Brandon Cooks. They don't have Nico Collins. So, yeah, I'm going to go Mike Williams. Do I start Foreman this week or Tony Jones? Foreman, easily. Foreman's going to be like my 21, 22 running back. Tony Jones probably in the 40 range. Foreman probably going to see the bulk of 1 and 2 downs now that he's off the injury report. You are welcome very much. Kate Smith says Pacheco, Wilson, Keenan Allen, Hollywood, or ETN. Pick 3. Keenan Allen is in. ETN is in. And then I think it's going to be Wilson for me. He's been hot. They're going to be playing from behind versus Buffalo. They're going to be throwing the ball a little bit more. So I lean those 3. Keenan Allen, Wilson, and ETN. Flex, Rashad White or Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke for me. Zeke's in my top 12 this week. He's back to my RB1 category, back in, but I just mentioned it. Houston, horrible versus the run. They've averaged giving up 28.69 fantasy points to running backs per game. So that's not one running back, that's the team's running back. So expect that number with Dallas, I think, to be higher, quite frankly, because that's an average. You have Pollard and Zeke here. Both of them are inside my top 12. I do expect them to run a lot and to utilize the running backs a lot this game. Njoku or Dulcich? Dulcich for me, again, mentioned earlier, he's my tight end 3 for the week. So love the matchup for him playing from behind against Kansas City. Love the fact that he is now a primary weapon because Cortland Sutton was ruled out. Denver's middle of the pack. They're 13th best versus the tight end, but if they move him out wide and he's utilized more as a wide receiver this week, which is what we're expecting from the beat writers, Dulcich should have a pretty smash game. Branderson says, I know not a start sit. Have you heard any chatter on Goddard's progress? Loving the show. You're awesome. Thank you very much. Glad you find me humorous. My wife does not. I would probably say the news that I've seen from Goddard is that he is progressing and on track to return week 15. I think we're going to want to, of course, see injury reports next week, get the beat writers once he's back on the field. But word is that he should be back on the field as expected in week 15. So I'm hoping for it as well. And there's a couple leagues that I've been desperate at tight end position since he's been out. I've been counting on it. The information that I have seen, I expect him back on the field. And if I see anything otherwise, I'll make note of it on Twitter next week as well. Mike Williams or Palmer on Monday. I lean Mike Williams. Palmer probably back to wide receiver 3, but still going to be involved. I still think Mike Williams, though, has the talent to succeed and at least the body to be a touchdown as well. So I like Mike Williams. I'm a big Mike Will fan, though, too, as well. So maybe a little biased here, but I think Mike Williams is when healthy, is a top 15 receiver on any given week. Have to drop one for a kicker. Who's the better stash between Jalen Warren or Jordan Mason? Jalen Warren, to me, is the better stash. It's clear and obvious that the Niners are going to just pound the run game with Christian McCaffrey. They activated Tevin Coleman today, which is not good news for Jordan Mason. So Jordan Mason is an easy drop for me. I would stash Jalen Warren because he's getting usage even with Najee Harris on the field. So drop Jordan Mason freely right now. PPR, pick one, Pollard, Sanders, or Price. Pollard, easily, hands down. Houston, like I said, really bad versus the running back position. Pollard's going to smash this week. I think he's in my top 8. Let me see. Tell you exactly where I have him. Number 9. Yep. Maybe I'll move him to 8. I mean, that's how easy this matchup is. So I think Pollard is a smash play this week. Needs to be in your lineups. The only people I would even be comfortable, like I'll probably move Barkley down. So Barkley will move down, Pollard will be moved up. So Pollard will move to 8. Barkley probably moves like 10, if not lower, depending upon the news tomorrow. The only running backs that I have ahead of Tony Pollard right now are Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, Ramondre Stevenson, Josh Jacobs, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, and Austin Eckler in list. So just moved Barkley down because I noticed he was up there still with the injury news. And so I'd say Pollard is a smash play. So start him with confidence. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, smash the like button. Let's do it. Help the show out. All right, everybody. I'm going to give you like 2 more minutes to type any questions you have inside the chat. I'm going to give you another minute or 2 to throw those in there. I'm going to have a sip of water, and then we'll answer the last start-sit questions, call it a night, and I'll finish my rankings. And I'll be in Discord tomorrow as well. So Discord tomorrow, I'll be up pretty early, 7 Pacific time, so that's 10 Eastern time. I'll be in there answering questions in Discord. If I miss your questions, sometimes there's a lot of questions and I miss them. Just tag me again. I'll be more than happy to answer them. I should usually get them all. Please give me like more. Like I'm going to stop answering questions at like 9:45 Pacific time. That gives me 15 minutes to like finalize all my rosters as well and then make sure I'm not missing anything for news-wise for rankings. So if you ask, I usually give, like last week, I gave everyone like a last warning, like get your final questions in on Discord because I feel bad when you ask them at like 55 and then I miss them. And then it's like, oh crap, I missed it. And but it was only like 5 minutes before kickoff. Like try to get them in a little earlier. Try to give me 15 minutes. Looks like the last 2 questions here. Have Kansas City defense week 15 versus Houston, 17 versus Denver, week 16 Chargers play Colts, who are 31st versus DST, like Charger stash week 16. So you're looking for a week 16? Is that what I'm assuming? Is what I'm reading here? It's kind of worded funny, but I think you're saying that you like Chargers Week 16 versus Kansas City. So Kansas City Week 16 though gets the Seahawks. Chargers, you said get the Colts. Yeah, no, I probably just stick with Kansas City. I don't like rostering two defenses, and I wouldn't want to waste the space. So I'm going to just roster Kansas City and roll with them. That's my answer there. Seattle D or Philadelphia D this week? This week, I'm assuming, is what he's saying. Ooh, let's see my defensive rankings. I don't submit defensive rankings to Fantasy Pros. I just do them on the side. Let's see where I have them. 1 second. So Seattle's just Carolina. Philadelphia's versus the Giants. Philadelphia for me still. Yep, I lean Philadelphia. Palmer, Gabe Davis, Hinton. Slight lean Gabe Davis with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen back. Hinton I like a lot, but he's still probably going to be in that. Where do I have? I think I have like a wide receiver 50 or something, 52. 44. So he's at 44. Palmer's at 35. Gabe Davis is at 30. So slight lean Gabe Davis. And yes, this week. Yep, Philadelphia this week. That's it, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks for joining the show. Make sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Talk to you later.